Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Toki, brought to us by Taito. Developed by TAB, a developer that was made up of former Data East employees. They would also create Cabal as well as Heavy Barrel. Toki is one of my absolute favorite run-and-gun style of arcade games. It was so different when I got the NES and Sega Genesis versions that this game quickly became an all-time favorite for me. There actually are some differences between the Genesis and NES versions of Toki, but I'll get more into that when I play Toki for Sega Genesis down the road. For this video though, here we go with Toki on the NES. The NES version of Toki is very much based off the arcade version. There's a total of 6 levels, and the layouts for the levels are pretty much the same from the arcade version. However, the NES version is made substantially easier by having a health system. In the arcade version of the game, there is no health system, so it's just one hit, and Toki unfortunately loses a life. As we begin level number 1, you'll notice at the bottom of the screen we have the timer, which usually isn't a factor. You have your current score as well as the high score. You then, of course, have the more important information, like in the lower left portion of the screen, the amount of lives you currently have, as well as your health represented by the hearts. You can gain 2 more for a total of 4 health points in total. You actually earn these after defeating certain bosses. The most useful power-up, though, isn't one for just attacking. It's the helmet. This grants you invincibility, and when we have it, we're gonna run as quickly as we can through as many enemies as possible, and this allows us to really kind of bypass a lot of the trickier areas of the title. One of my least favorite enemies in any version of Toki is the spider enemies. They move pretty quickly, fire out projectiles in a lot of directions, and get faster as you attack them. A few of the spiders you do have to take out, but if I can possibly avoid them, I absolutely try to. Another cool power-up, though, is the power-up shoes that we will grab right here, and this allows Toki to jump really high up into the air. You can also jump off the vines, like you can see here, to help you get up things a little bit quicker. Use the weight on the left side of this area after taking out the enemies if you want to fly up, and since we have that powerful super jump, we can jump up high and grab the helmet, once again granting us invincibility for the last little bit of the level. When we make it to the boss, if you still have your power-ups or invincibility, for example, you keep them. So for this first boss, it ends up being really easy because we have that invincibility pretty much the whole time. Just keep mashing the attack button. He does jump a little bit, which you'll have to avoid if you don't have that helmet, as well as he sends that kind of set of monkeys barreling towards you, which also will eat up some of your bullets. You can jump on the heads of most enemies in the game as well, and this really allows you to not only kind of get through areas a little bit fast, you can take some shortcuts by bouncing off the heads of enemies, and also avoid other enemies by doing so. As we begin level number 2, be careful climbing right up, watching out for the cannon being launched by the monkey on the left side. We're going to climb up the right vine here, go underneath these enemies. If you time it right, you can actually bounce off of the bugs that are flying right here and actually get up to this platform a little easier for a nice little shortcut, but it doesn't end up working all the time. Over here, be sure to take out the bird enemy. It's going to drop an invincibility helmet. And guess what we're going to do? Yep, probably guessed it already. Barrel through very quickly. In this case, we're going to be jumping down into the depths of the water here as Toki. Thankfully, you don't have to press any button to swim, just move the D-pad in whichever direction you want to go to get Toki to move that way. When you make it through this little opening, we're going to climb up here to the top because we can kind of get another power-up just so that we maintain having a special attack while going through the remainder of the underwater area, including the sub-boss that we're about to deal with in just a moment. For this sub-boss, you'll notice you actually can get really close to him and just keep firing as long as you're below the shield and have that firepower. You'll be able to easily hit him, and in fact, his hitbox isn't very big. The trident's actually in me most of the time, and I'm still able to hit him without taking any damage for myself. Go up this large set of water to the top here, take out this bug enemy flying overhead. It can be a bit of a nuisance, and if you try to jump, there is a ceiling there that will cause you to immediately bounce back down, so you can't really jump off the heads of enemies near the top of the screen. For this boss, he fires out a bunch of eyeballs towards you. We're going to fire up in his direction. You can also bounce on top of the eyeballs to continue firing at him. Eventually, he'll disappear, reappear, and then we'll continue that trend of watching out for the eyeballs that pop out, bounce on them if we need to, and keep launching in those fire pellets in order to take down his health. And once he's finally done, we're moving on to level 3, and we'll reward it with another piece of health. Sadly though, they don't give you the health right away. You have to earn that extra piece of health. Level number 3 is the Fire Cavern. Be very careful on the platform at the very beginning that you're able to jump to it and get over the fire pit. It is instant death, even with the helmet if you land in the fire, as well as of course falling into pits and a few little other kind of like instant death areas of the game. That's the only things that the invincibility thing doesn't protect you from. The special power-up I have here, the fire power, as you can see, charges up, and when you launch it out, is able to do more damage. And because of the kind of like sub-boss little phoenix guy that we're dealing with here, this enemy, we can actually take him out with just a couple of the fully charged up blast. Right here, I'm going to perform a little bit of a tricky jump off of an enemy. If you miss it, it's not really the biggest deal. Hitting that ghost-like guy and getting up to where the other invincibility helmet is something that I pull off like 1 every 8 or so times. Thankfully, though, this time it was able to get done. If you don't grab that helmet, though, you just have to be a little bit more cautious during the rest of that little area. But if you're able to get that helmet and maintain it for a bit, it works pretty well for getting through the kind of big bulk of the rest of this level. Watch out for the Phoenix enemy down here. It sometimes fires out that 3-shot spread shot that you'll have to dodge out of the way of. Just keep launching in your attacks. Eventually it will go down, and once it does, you'll get the key that ends up moving the platforms over to the right. Drop down, watching out for the spider, and be very careful on this platform as it's moving across the lava pretty slowly. Just be careful not to jump off, fall into that lava. Like I said, instant death if you do. Be careful here, take out the spikes from afar, doing some jumping moves or diagonal shots, and this will allow you to get through at least without taking any damage there. Grab a hold of the vine. Sometimes it's a little tricky grabbing the vine, so make sure for sure that you have a hold of it before pressing too far on the right part of the D-pad and going into that lava. There is a few power-up special moves. Grab them if you can during this segment as we're nearing the end of the level, and of course having any kind of power-up going into a boss encounter will help you out some. Jump over the column, watch out for a couple more of those giant spikes. Thankfully, you can take them out pretty easily from afar, and the blast that they do launch out moves pretty slow. Here we have Burp. Burp is one of the more interesting creatures for sure in Toki, firing out literally the words that spell out burp. You can only hurt him by hitting him in his body, you can block it sometimes, but thankfully the burp letters that he consistently keeps firing out can also be easily destroyed by your own firepower. It's the trickiest of the bosses for sure that we've dealt with so far, but by no means is he the most difficult, but one of the more memorable ones. And of course, like any good arcade game or platformer from the good old days, you have a fire level, and you also have an ice level, as we have here in the Ice Palace that we get to travel to. Take out this monkey that's bouncing around here before climbing up. Thankfully, you have that little opening to kind of get through. These platforms, the little clear ice ones, do fall once you do land on them, so be sure that you know where you're about to go to next before landing on any of them. Up here you can grab the kind of firepower, the flamethrower-like move. For this next hallway, we're going to keep on moving. Just keep moving at a nice pace. A lot of the enemies will move slowly so that we can kind of keep up with that pace, and we can jump on the heads of a lot of them. Most enemies in the game I just try to bypass if possible, since of course attacking them slows you down. Toki comes to a stop when you fire out any of your projectiles. And because of this, enemies, a lot of times if they're chasing you, will catch up if you try to take out other ones that are in front of you. So knowing which ones you can bypass and which ones you have to deal with is really the kind of key to survival in Toki. Once you get down here, take out this enemy. This will get the key to appear. Once it appears, we're also going to grab the helmet by bouncing off of that same enemy so that we can have that going underwater here. This is just a straight shot. Since we grab the helmet, just keep moving forward. It's a long corridor here. You don't even have to worry about this octopus that's blocking the door. Normally you would have to fire at it, but thankfully the helmet, we easily destroy it. We're going to go to the south corner and grab this power-up as well so that we have the more powerful blast. We're getting ready to face off with the boss, and maintaining this power blast will greatly help us in getting the boss's health down really easily. Here we have the giant crystal ice mammoth. You have to hit it in its body. The trunk can block your shots, and it fires out these boomerang-like tusks at you. But it goes down extremely fast to the big power-up shot. So if you have that still going into the fight, you should have a pretty easy time. If you don't, you'll have to do a lot more dodging around the boomerangs, which move in a pretty easy pattern. And honestly, it's good practice because the final boss has another move that tracks you down a little bit similar to those boomerang-like things as well. Level number 5 is the Dark Jungle. Take out the enemy right from the beginning. We're going to get a big bonus that gives us a lot of extra bonus points. Some of the giant spike columns, like some of the ones here, I'm able to kind of jump over. I'm going to bounce off the heads of the bug guys here, and that will allow me also to grab this power-up in the air, so at least I have a more powerful shot for the enemies I do have to deal with. Over here, take out this flower, and then bounce off the bug to grab the invincibility helmet. Thankfully, the other enemies like the lizards and a lot of stuff flying towards us during this segment, including even the spike columns, we're just going to walk right on through as if they are absolutely nothing to us. Over here, grab a hold of the vine and swing across. You can bounce off the head of this guy here and grab another power-up so you can keep having a special move. It is the flamethrower. Not my favorite by any means, but at least it does help you out and does more damage than the default weapon. Be careful of the bugs down here. You can bounce off the head of the one if you want to grab that extra one up. Thankfully, I have pretty good on extra lives currently at the moment. Be sure to take out the frog-like thing climbing on the vine before, of course, continuing to climb up. You can fire up both the left and right sides of the vine, so be sure to firing up the right one in order to make that contact. Drop down here if you want to grab the power-up sneaker so you can have that super jump, which will aid you a little bit in getting past this next little area. Attack the spider from the platform below before going up the vine, blast the enemy, and then use the weight on the left side here to blast upwards and into the sky. You'll have a bunch of thorns to the right, use the vine swinging back and forth to get across, and then you'll have a series of moving platforms that you'll have to carefully navigate to get across. You can grab a power-up on this segment, and I recommend that you do, because the boss is right here and it will help you out. This boss can be difficult, but with this strategy of getting the big power-up shot, then getting through the legs, you're going to take a hit, so make sure you have at least 2 health going into this fight. Then keep blasting the heart. Every few seconds, these hands will come in, the hand will grab it and stop you from hurting the heart for a few moments. However, it will then quickly go away, and by the time the feet make their way back, if you have the powered up shot, you'll be for sure able to take out the heart and the whole creature before you're taken out by its feet. I did appreciate the Ghost and Goblins-esque map system that we got for the NES version of Toki that gives you a little bit of information about each level, including the Golden Palace that we're about to enter, the evil Miho that turned us into the monkey Toki that we are, the ape here. This level, as you can expect, is a pretty tricky one. These giant columns are going to come down from the beginning. I sometimes try to jump them, but usually end up getting hit, so to be more cautious and to maintain health, since this is the final level of the game, just wait for them to go back up and then quickly go underneath them when they retract. Watch out for the little flame cannons. They're all throughout this level. You'll notice them, but they're a little tricky to see. Those flames can damage you and be a little bit of a bother. The big soldier enemy guys, you can bounce on their heads, or they can take several shots in order to defeat them. Once again, watch out for the flames popping out of the pyramid here. For the big floating head guy, we're just going to go underneath of him, or you can jump on his head, whichever way is going to be easier for you to just kind of keep on trucking. Stand here at the bottom of these kind of staircase platforms to take out the enemies here, before then getting to the wonderful minecart-like segment here. One thing that keep in mind during this segment is when you jump, try not to move forward except at only a couple of the jumps. Moving forward just complicates it, the camera has a hard time realigning, and trying to get Toki to just go backwards like after hitting forwards during this segment is near impossible, and you'll end up finding yourself falling into the pit. For the second segment here, watch out, we're going to do a duck and then jump up into the invincibility helmet. Since you're jumping up, by the time you grab it, you'll have invincibility so you can avoid taking damage. Only at the segment there where you have the big gap between the platforms do you kind of want to hit forward, and then you're going to want to do the same on the final jump here. Hold forward when making that final jump, but still you got to make sure you're near the edge before making that jump, or else you'll just end up being a little short and fall into the pit. If you have the helmet still, it will go away before the boss, but at least you can get past all those last few enemies before the boss and maintain whatever health you have. The evil Miho has a couple of forms that we have to deal with. This first one we're going to be battling is just destroying the cloak, basically. He fires out a boomerang-like projectile, very similar to the woolly mammoth that we dealt with in the ice level. Jump over and then kind of like move back, and this will allow it to kind of go past you. Once the first form is taken out, the second form begins. Thankfully, this fight we can see the health at the bottom of the screen. Now, for this fight, my strategy is keeping my eyes on Toki and projectiles immediately coming towards me, including the hand, the head, and all the little fireballs. I don't worry about focusing if my hits are landing or how much damage I'm doing. If I'm jumping and keep firing, I know I'm landing my hits against this boss. This allows me to focus more on being able to dodge around the tricky attacks that the enemy is doing. The hand isn't as annoying as both the head as well as the fire, and sometimes the head coming out and the fire can kind of align, so the timing on it can sometimes be a bit difficult to avoid. However, once you deliver those final hits, you can sit back and enjoy the ending, the Toki, on the NES. So there you have it, Toki on the NES. I love the final screen though. Some great advice there at the very bottom. Now that we've completed the game, we're ready to fight through our lives as a human being. Everything that we've gained, all the knowledge and skills we've gained through this game are going to get us through life. So thank you, Toki. Because I beat you, I know I can make it through anything. At least it is a nice little motivational ending, unlike just either a single screen, nothing, or something badly written or broken up with bad English that's hard to even understand what they were trying to say. However, with all that, that's going to wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.